Hi, Yvonne.
Hello, Evie. How are you?
I'm all right. Good, I suppose. We're still here. We're talking.
Good, you suppose. Okay.
Yeah. Keep on myth busting.
We're myth busting. We're back. We're back for another week of myth busting. And I'm just going to say this up front. This is recorded. Usually you get us live. Today it's recorded. Simply because plans meant it had to be that way. So, but we didn't want to not be here, and that's the important part. So, permission to thrive. We're here. We're myth busting. We're looking at those phrases, those stories, the narratives that can keep us small, that can shrink our self-belief into what is possible for us, and quite often they are so inbuilt into our system that we don't actually recognize them. We don't actually see or feel them even because they have become part and parcel of how we show up. But they were never ours to adapt. They came usually to help us get through a situation or a series of situations. However, they have become, I want to say they've overstayed their welcome, actually. They've overstayed their welcome and have
Makes
been
sense.
become part of how we end up showing up. Now, the important thing really is about that this myth busting is about being able to recognize those phrases, those stories that we are telling ourselves, and to just be able to see them. So we're not even talking about fixing anything here. This is literally being able to recognize what are those things that come up. And we will share our own experiences from clients, and then we encourage you to share back also in the comments anything that comes up for you. And we'll give you a couple of, well, it's not really tips, but ways to kind of reframe some of these phrases so that you are empowered to deal with them in a much more supportive, helpful, encouraging way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And well, today we're talking about the self-trust erosion. And the first limiting phrase that we're talking about is I don't trust myself. Now, this is a big one, I suppose, because if you don't trust yourself, who can you trust? I would ask. Um, has that showed up for you, Yvonne? I mean, for me, not so much, not often at least. But how has I don't know, maybe in a
So
different way. I don't know.
I'm going to say I may not have used again. It's the wording's not always the same. However, for me, when you don't trust yourself, it's generally when you are overriding your intuition. When you know, it's like you know that you know, and still you ignore it because somebody else says it should be something else, or you're so used to people doing things another way. Oh, well, that's what everyone else does. I'll do that. And so you literally override your own intuition. So have I done it? Oh my goodness, probably more times than I can count where I've literally either felt it in my gut and like, oh, this is not the right thing, or I need to do this, and then I don't. And that is that disconnect from trusting what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing, and instead doing something that I've either seen it done by others many, many times, and oh well, that's what most people do, so I'll do that. This is what happens a lot. So
Okay.
even if we don't recognize the language, it's understanding that it is that I've got this sensation, I've got this feeling, it's kind of telling me, and sometimes we may not always be able to identify exactly what it's telling us. It's telling me something. There's something about this that I'm missing, or there's something about this that isn't right. But what do? We do it anyway. We do it anyway because it's either a place of comfort, like we know it, I've always done it, so I'm just going to do it again. You know, when we talk about that repetition, keep on doing the thing that you've always done, and it didn't work, it's not working. Why are you still doing it? Because we don't trust the alternative, and the alternative is trusting ourselves.
Yeah. No, I mean, putting it this way, yeah, now I can see, like, it is the phrase, and sometimes the phrases that we share, they don't necessarily resonate with what, we feel and how they showed up for us. But yeah, the way you were explaining it now, I mean, it makes so much more sense to me. And like I remember, and even now, sometimes that I would have that pull with, my gut is pulling me towards something, and then for whatever reason I decide against it. But it's, generally speaking, that reason is an external reason. And that proves basically that I don't trust what my body told me, or what me, I was getting intuitively, and I just complied with anything that happens around me, whether it's a situation or people that I want to please, and I want to keep the peace, or what have you. Um, and that I can see happening quite a lot with um, women in general, I suppose.
Yes.
And I have seen it quite a lot with my clients. Um, so
Yeah, and that's a really good word, compliance. We comply, we fall into line, we toe the line, we do what everyone else is doing because it's safer than trusting myself. And what if I trust myself and then it's wrong and I make an absolute mess? But your intuition is there for a reason. And yeah, this has been my learning for myself is like when you get those sensations, it's not random. They're happening for a reason. So for me now, I feel like I have a responsibility to pause and to notice, to truly notice. And this is part of why I developed the framework that I kind of use in my coaching and my work is that taking that moment to pause, stop rushing into the next thing, rushing ahead, pausing and noticing what is it that I'm feeling? And even if I can't put a name to it, like, oh, this feeling is telling me X, Y, and Z, staying with it long enough for me not to fall into the old pattern of just doing it anyway, or just doing that thing anyway. And that for me has been how I have started to really rebuild trust in myself. It's
mm,
just like pausing, noticing, pause and notice. And then when I look at it, and then like for me, that next step is when I talk about the return, it's like returning to what truly matters or what has true meaning. This thing that I'm being asked to do, let's just say, for example, how is that aligning with my values? How is that aligning with the outcomes that I want to see? How is that? Because that then that allows me time to put things into more perspective
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and then be really clear on actually, yeah, I'm gonna trust what's happening here. And I'm gonna do this thing or I'm not gonna do this thing based on this sensation.
It is a hard ask, though. I mean, like, if for many years we have um, like, sort of leaned into external things that moved us, it's very hard to come back to and to trust ourselves, because the first thing now, like, everything comes to my head, like, as I felt more close to what this phrase means. Is like, you are looking for all the evidence under the sun that you cannot trust you, because you have never delivered before, because you have never completed before, because you have never, I don't know, whatever you haven't done, or have done before. And
Mm,
we have said that many times, like, evidence can be found in the positive or the negative. It doesn't matter. You can find evidence, like, all the evidence you want for anything at this moment in time. So yeah, I remember, like, looking for the evidence and basing my decision on the evidence, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, that I can't tell you, but like now that I have been practicing the pause myself, I have been listening to how I feel with regard to some things. And in the past, I would like override the feeling. I would be
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, I might be pulled, but I'm also very enthusiastic, and maybe I shouldn't be that enthusiastic, and maybe so now I have like started overriding even like my own um personality, or my my go-to sentiments or whatever, and become somebody else just to comply, just to
Yeah.
be part of the system, just I don't know what. So yeah, it is a hard ask, but I can definitely tell that it is part of the work that we all do till we die. So it is an important part of that work, and I think the more you trust you, the more likely it is that you're going to get the outcomes that you want, or the lessons that you need. Because let's face it, that might be another thing, that now you stopped yourself from getting the lesson, which is a very important thing too.
Yeah. I think it's, when we learn to trust ourselves, and that whole journey is, making small choices that we know are our own. Because so many choices we make are on auto, and that auto is not, generally speaking, ours of the making. It's all the external influence and what we've been told should be and must be.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that we are okay to trust all of that external and not trust the internal. Like, that fascinates me. It's just like, well, Joe and Bob and Kelly, and they all said so it must be, and we will do that, even when something inside is saying, like, and maybe it is for them, but maybe it's not for you. That we are so willing or able to override. And again, for me, once I realized how good I was getting at overriding myself, I just thought, we're not doing this anymore. This is not okay. This is not the way I want to be. I want to be more in tuned so that when I make a decision or a choice, I can fully own it. It's come
Yeah.
from me, it's of me, it's not because somebody told me this is what it is. And whether the outcome is good or bad, I can completely own it because it was my decision and my choice.
But that is like also, and I keep thinking for me, and I also keep saying to my clients, like, responsibility comes like is a big thing, right? And a lot of
Mm,
us want to avoid it. However, responsibility is our biggest strength, because the more you are responsible for the things that you want to do and that you're doing, the more you are in control of what your environment looks like, or what your life looks like, and so many other things. So it is important, as you said, like for our decisions to come directly from here. And many years ago, when I found out that very little of our decisions are actually ours, for some reason, um, not for some reason. I mean, psychology like explains that very well. And when that's what advertising is based on, that's like news, what news is based on, all these things. So a lot of our decisions are not directly related to our intuition, our gut. They are like things that we are deciding because of all these external things. And
yeah,
only if we paused, we could say that, okay, now I'm taking a decision that might be based on something external as well as internal, but it is at least an educated decision, something that I have sat with. I have allowed myself to play with it, to work with it, to understand it a little bit, and then do what I think is best for this moment in time for me with the knowledge that I have. I mean, I'm sure that like there are a lot of decisions that any of us can say that they took over the, like different times of their lives that they're laughing at right now. Say, what was I thinking? But it doesn't
Good grief,
matter,
yeah. So many.
Absolutely. But I mean, it is the right thing for the time that you took it. That's what you knew. That's what I knew. This is the decision I decided to take. And that's why it is important that we can own it, because
Yes.
if that wasn't, or if we allow somebody else to run or to direct that decision, then it becomes a different thing. It becomes like,
Yes.
oh, because she told me that, because my mother, my father, my I don't know what, that's why. And but passing blame doesn't really help our own, like enhancement, our own like growth. That's a better
Indeed.
word, I suppose.
Yeah.
At all. So yeah, it's best if we forget about it and just take responsibility. That's the most
Yeah.
important bit.
Yeah. Again, that taking responsibility for me has just been huge. So whether something goes incredibly well or it goes horribly wrong, it's like, yeah, I felt this, or I did that, or I said this, or I thought that. It was mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And when I think about how many people kind of take responsibility for things that weren't theirs, that's the thing
Another
when
one.
you're not self-trusting, right? And you're trusting all the external stuff. So you do all this stuff based on somebody else's trust in something, and you just follow suit. So sometimes I think it is literally just pausing and thinking, well, hold on a moment. What does this really mean to me? And where am I feeling this? Am I actually feeling this anywhere in my body? Have I got any specific thoughts or anything that are coming up that may be here to guide me and serve me? And don't get me wrong, because something you said in as you were speaking was, yes, this is not about overriding life lessons. This is not, because we every single thing that we do, every single thing provides a lesson.
Yep.
Whether we think so or not, whether we take it or not, it does. The thing is that every time we override our intuition and take somebody else's thought or way or whatever that is, we kind of dial it down. It doesn't disappear, but it gets really hard for us to hear because we've dialed it down so much, we've overridden it so many times. And so in those moments when it would really do us justice and be wise to hear it, we struggle. That's
Yeah.
my perspective. That's my take.
No, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because it is like something becomes a norm when you do it enough times, and why shouldn't it be the same here? So
Yeah.
the more you don't trust yourself, the more you won't trust yourself. And you will be looking for answers all around you apart from inside you. And then, like if we are to move to the next phrase that we are discussing here, it creates that illusion of I always get it wrong. Well, what does that even mean? And I mean, we're back to these things that we are discussing about, like all these generalizations that we tell ourselves, believing them to be true. What does always mean? So every single time?
Yeah. This is the language. So we adopt a language though, don't we? So I'm always intrigued by how often I hear the always. Oh, but I always do that, and I always do this. I always get it wrong, or I always get it right. Either way, whatever way you want to look at it, is where did the always come from? So you're going to tell me from childhood to now, it's always been this way on about this specific thing. It's we adopt a language, but here's the thing: we adopt it, it becomes wired. That is literally where we start operating from and operating with. And yet underneath that, and I know you speak a lot about, well, what's wrong? Well, we know what things that are really wrong. We know that in behavior, but I always get it wrong. Maybe it's an opportunity, it's a doorway to say, I get the opportunity to test drive this. I always get it wrong. Maybe on this occasion, I'm just going to go with it anyway and see what happens. And now I'm talking a little bit more about feeding into intuition. So when we trust ourselves, maybe I have always got it wrong when I don't know anyone who has. I want to say most often when I speak to women, it's like I knew it and I still didn't do it. I literally pointing to their bodies. I knew it and I still didn't do it. That's overriding. I very rarely, I don't know if I ever have actually had somebody say, I always listen to my intuition and I'm always wrong. I haven't heard that. Right. So I always get it wrong is for me rewriting your story through self-blame. You're blaming yourself for everything. And how is that possible? How is that possible?
And it is likely that you get the evidence for getting things wrong because you haven't trusted yourself. So it becomes like a vicious cycle. I mean, if you think about it, that could be the case that you get evidence like that. But okay, let's put that aside and take away like what you're saying, Yvonne, which is fabulous. Like, okay, let's say I've always got it wrong. What would it look like if I like surrender to whatever I'm feeling and see where that will take me? What's the worst that can happen? I'm always getting it wrong anyway, so I might get it wrong one more time. So what? Exactly. It like normalizes it, right? So it gives you the opportunity, it gives you the freedom to just go ahead and do it. You get it wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter, does it?
Exactly. And I think again it comes back to, and we talked about this a little bit with I don't trust myself, is every choice teaches you something. There's not a choice that you make that doesn't have a lesson attached to it. Whether you acknowledge it, whether you do anything with the information from it, that's a whole other thing. But there is a lesson learned. So it's interesting. Um, I saw a post in the past couple of days, and it was talking about, you know, the importance of people being open to learning. And I'm like, there's opportunities every single day. Not necessarily having to go off to study something, and I'm not talking, that's another learning, absolutely. I'm talking about life every single day. Every choice that you make is creating something else, right? It's
Exactly.
creating something else. What is that? Is it gold or is it eek? I don't ever want that to be the case again. Being able to see that. We don't, but we sail through one day into the next, into the next, into the next. We miss most of the magic. We missed we missed most of the mystery of life because we're so busy getting into the next day and the next day and the next day. Um, and so I think that what this phrase for me, I always get it wrong. It's not one that I can relate to personally, but have I heard it? Absolutely. Usually because somebody has been doing things not of their own choosing, not of their own decisions, and not getting the result they wanted. and then wondering how they got there. Because all of these external forces, voices have been telling them, have created a structure for them, go follow that structure. And then it doesn't work. And then they feel, I get it wrong. I just keep on getting it wrong. Actually, it's because you're not taking, more often than not, I'm not going to say every time, I'm not going to say always, more often than not, it's probably because you're not listening to yourself. It's because you're not taking that time to pause and tune in and actually, how does that really sit for me? Yeah.
I think that it is very important to like go back in time sometimes with this type of things and just try and reframe a few things and see what they look like. Like what I normally say to my clients, like, okay, let's look at a failure of the past. I don't particularly like using the word failure, but like some people are like very hell-bent on like talking about failure. Okay, let's talk about failure. Let's talk about the failure in the past. And like usually I'm going like 10, 20 years ago, just so there is a lot of you can see it is like really does not affect them right now, or at least something not I'm not including trauma here and stuff, right? So like let's talk about this failure or that failure, and what has this meant then, and what does it mean now? Because that's when you can see the difference, or potentially that's where the learning is very obvious, because hindsight is like 2020, as they say, and it can show you, if you do this exercise, that okay, yeah, I thought that was like a really bad thing, and then thinking about it today, no, it has taught me this, it has taught me that, it has brought this person in my life, it has done that, and so here is your evidence. Anytime that you want to work with something that you always do wrong, try something like that. I think that helps quite a lot.
Honestly, if you look over the timeline of your life, really look at it, and I'm not specifically trying to look for all the things that went wrong in your mind, you will see that there were times when didn't quite go the way that I wanted, and then there were times where, gosh, it was so spot on, or better than, wow, actually. So it's like you, and I know you say this a lot, Evie, it's like, whatever it is that you're looking for, you will find. You will find the things that support it. And literally, I know that I remember when I first did the timeline exercise, it was like everything below the line were all the things, all the events that you could remember that impacted you, and I'm going to use the word negatively, that either upset you, stressful, that caused you pain. And then all the ones above the line were the things that had gone well, they were what you planned, or they were a surprise. And actually, doing this over a 10, 20, 30-year, kind of really looking at these events. And I know for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, you've had so many awesome experiences. How could you possibly allow that one or those two or whatever frame everything else?
There is nothing more important than actually scrutinizing your life in such a way, like in the good way, because that's how you end up understanding and giving the right meaning to where you're at right this minute in your life. And also that gives you a very good perspective how you would like to live your life from here on, because the whole idea is to have the experience, learn something, and move towards what you want. So it is,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that trusting ourselves is a very important skill that you need to cultivate. And yeah, it might take time. And I think that also, we are conditioned, like in our teens. I'm sure that like all of us, I'm sure I was as well. Like there is peer pressure. There are people that like you want to fit in, you want to be like with everybody else, so you do what other people do. Sometimes, most of the times, depending on your character, I suppose. But as we grow older, we realize, and we know better than that, I suppose. And like we also learn how to listen to our bodies more, even if that's not something that happens automatically. But that's what we're all about, right? That's how we grow, we mature, and so on and so forth. So
And I think also with this, I always get it wrong, is be able to look at the event or the events and be more compassionate. Because if somebody was coming to you with something that had gone awfully wrong, chances are you would show them compassion. You would be empathetic. You would, oh, sometimes, what do you, life goes that way. What do you want to take from it? What can you take from it? And then but you don't do it for yourself,
no.
right?
No.
So even that, just understanding, be kinder to yourself. And when something feels deeply right or true to you, trust it. Like you said, Evie, the worst thing can happen is it goes wrong. Well, if it was going wrong anyway, what difference does that make? What difference does it make? Um, and learn to trust yourself more each day. Start being really responsible for those decisions and the choices that you are making. Let them be yours so that you can take that responsibility. That for me is like my huge thing. It's like, however my life is shaping now, whatever's my responsibility, because I am very aware of the choices and the decisions I'm making. And that really matters to me because I can think of chapters in my life where that was absolutely not the case, where I allowed others to make decisions and choices for me that I didn't even necessarily agree with, but I went with them anyway. That is a lack of self-trust.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's how it is. You framed very well, and I think that we all have had these chapters in our lives, and like if we have the awareness that we had them, it's about time we take ownership and we, make our own decisions for better
Absolutely.
or worse.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I have to say, I always like to think when I think about trust, because trust is it's such a important part of, relationship building, um, and that, not least with the relationship with ourselves. Let me just throw that in the in the ring because we talk about relationships and immediately think outwards. I'm talking about this relationship and outwards of. That for me personally, I always think my faith is something I have a lot of trust in, and myself I have trust in now in ways I never had before. And how that changes the way that I experience life, I'm not sure how I get to quantify that in words. But I definitely feel much more connected to myself and the world around me, including the people, now
Yeah,
with self-trust than I did without it.
that's awesome. That is very important, right? I think with that we can leave you.
I think we
That
can.
is a lot of food for thought there, and yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, any thoughts, any comments? What do you think about this whole thing about self-trust? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Do you trust yourself? Every time? Always? Some of the time? Never? What is that thing, And what are the signals that you get? I'm very much like, for me, my signals are very gut orientated, like in my gut area, or sometimes my heart, but generally my gut. There's definitely or a, yeah, this feels good. And I'm learning every day to be much more in sync so that I can pick those up with greater ease.
Yeah. And like that is the importance of being in tune with your own body, isn't it? You know,
For
and
sure.
that's your work. So
Beautiful. Yes, it is. Oh my goodness. As always, Evie, thank you so much.
thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. See you next Thursday.
Yes, thank you to all those who tuned in. Thank you.